Hey everybody, this is Goodtripbadtrip, and the date is. Actually, who the fuck cares what the date is at this point? I don't. And today I went to see Blade Runner 2049. I wanted to see it. It's played in a local cinema in English with Russian subtitles, and this still it still attracts quite an audience. There's still quite a few people there, and yeah, thinking that the audience would be somehow different, more, I don't know, educated, less prone to being shitheads and total douchebags because the movie is in English, is, if you think that, then think again. That's not gonna happen. You're gonna get a mix of people, some of whom will be decent people, some of whom will be shitheads. And of course, it's just my luck. I got exactly that kind of person sitting, not next to me, but a few seats away from me, to the left. So I take the aisle seat all the time, so that I could sneak out of the movie easily if it sucks, which is often the case. And so there were two girls. They were sitting I think 2 or 3 seats away from me, maybe even. And the problem was that they were eating chips. So with chips, the thing about chips, or crisps as they would call them in England, is that they pack them, and with popcorn, oftentimes it's just a little bit of a rustle. It's a little bit of a rustle, and it can also be distracting, it can also piss you off. But with chips, the problem is that they're usually in those bags that crinkle and rustle like hell. And I haven't got a chip bag handy here, but I found the equivalent. I was looking for the sound for a while, scouring through my bags, and the sound was something like this. And so, I hope you could hear that. And so what she was doing is she was eating those chips, and she was trying to be kind of, I guess she was trying to be polite about it, but it ended up sounding really loud. And she was also munching, but not in a loud munching way, but munching ever so quietly and discreetly, but like. So something like that. And it was that attempt to kind of be polite and quiet that made it even worse. And made it even worse and made it very, very irritating. So I'm sitting there and I'm getting distracted from this movie. And this movie, if you haven't seen it, absolutely go and see it. It's loud in some parts, and then in other parts it gets really quiet. And it's the quiet parts that are really, generating the whole atmosphere of the movie, and kind of sucking you into this universe. And when you're distracted during those parts, then you're kind of distracted from your connection to the universe of the movie. And before that, at the beginning of the movie, my phone was going off like crazy. I put it on silent, of course, but I could still feel it in my pants, and I saw some important message. I saw even a couple of important messages that I had to answer, but I tried to do so very, in a very discreet manner. Maybe that was pissing some people off too, but I don't know how it could have, because I didn't really make any sound while doing it, and even and that was the brightness setting was at the lowest, so it wasn't like lighting up the whole cinema or whatnot. So I'm now apologizing for also being partly a douchebag, but believe me, compared to this lady, that's nothing. And so, but yeah, after like 10 minutes, I just switched my phone off completely, put it in my pocket, and forgot about it. And maybe as a punishment for that, I got this let's call her chip lady, chip eater, chips. It wasn't popcorn, it was chips. She was eating chips, and she was munching, and she was rustling with the bag, and that was the most irritating sound, the rustling. So after a while, and it gets really distracting, I'm trying to watch the movie, and I catch myself starting to fantasize about, going over there, those two seats, and going over there and snatching that bag from her and just scattering those chips all over her head, and then at which point she'd probably start screaming and yelling, and I would just, shove this fucking chip bag down her throat to shut her the fuck up. But I'm trying, to not do that, to not even think about that, to not even fantasize about that, and trying to breathe, because breathing really helps you to calm down. So I'm like, trying to kind of breathe in and breathe out in a quiet manner again, trying not to distract the other people even more than she's distracting me. And then at some point she walks past me and walks out, and I'm like, hey, what happened? Did my breathing kind of help get rid of her in some way? Is she gone? Is she not coming back? And so I get back to the film and just dive into this amazing, really amazing universe. But of course she returns in like 5 minutes. She must have, taken a dump or something, and she's now back to working on her chips with renewed relentlessness, kind of hell-bent on finishing this bag, which, by the way, seems fucking endless. I don't know how big this bag of chips was, but the movie is like 2:46, and for the most part of the movie, she's eating chips. She's fucking eating those chips, munching on them for like 2 hours and something at least. And what happens then? The strangest thing happens. Help comes from places that you least expect it to come. So lady sitting in front, she just kind of turns around and in a very, not relaxed, but she was really calm about it. She's just like, girls, shh, please. And she shuts the fuck up at that point. She stops eating. I don't know, like once the movie ended, I just went out. I didn't see if she finished her chips or whatnot, but she stopped eating at that point. And I'm thinking to myself, Andre, you could have done that. You could have said that. But you know what? Maybe it's a female to female thing. Maybe she reacted in this peaceful, in just shut the fuck up, because it was another woman who addressed her, and also because of the calm manner that she did it in. Because if I had done it, it would have been like even if I'd said those exact same words in my voice, she would have heard the whole scenario that was running through in my head. Me stuffing the chip back down her throat and things like that, and that would have spiraled out of control really, really quick. And she would have, I don't even want to imagine what would have happened that. But thank God I didn't have to do it. And I was so thankful to this lady. And I said, thank you, but kind of under my breath. I really wanted to go up to her after the movie and say thank you for, giving me an opportunity to watch the rest of the film in peace. And so yeah, this is my review of Blade Runner 2049. Well, there's not much to say about the movie. Actually, if you haven't seen it, there is a lot to say about the movie, but I'm not a movie critic. If you haven't seen it, you should absolutely go and see it. It's really good. What's especially good about it is that it's not trying to be franchise starter. It's not trying to set things up for 10 other movies. It's a good story in and of itself. Although I foresee at least a couple sequels coming from it for sure. It's just a really good movie, and of course it's visually stunning. That's what I heard from a lot of people before, that it's visually stunning. The sound is amazing, in the loud parts, especially in the quiet parts. But sound was also a very strong feature of the original Blade Runner. And here, they utilized technologies to make it really something very impressive. And story-wise, it's really interesting. It's more than I expected story-wise, especially from the trailers. I was a bit concerned, and from the trailers and from the shorts that they released prior to the release of the movie. It's the story is quite simple, but it has a few plot twists, and the character is really interesting. And Ryan Gosling, of course, I mean, what can one say? He's a really good actor, and his character is really interesting, and it just keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole movie, which is, by the way, very long. It's like 2:46 or something, and I have two tests, so to speak, two litmus tests for a movie. Especially for a long movie, like internal tests. I mean, it's the watch test and the bladder test. So the watch test is especially if a movie is long. Sometimes some French movies can be 1 hour and 40 minutes, and still you look at your watch like 5 times, waiting for it to end. With longer movies, it very often happens. You want to see how much time is left, especially if you're in the cinema, yeah. And I haven't looked at my watch once. Throughout this whole time. And the second test is a bladder test. Is something that very few movies really pass. It's I'll explain on the example. Is when I came into the cinema, and I don't know, maybe 15 minutes into the movie, I started to feel this little urge to go to the toilet, to go and piss. It wasn't like a major urge, so my bladder wasn't bursting or anything, but I could piss. It was a situation where I could piss, and the movie was so good that at no point during the movie did this urge take over and say okay, you're gonna miss 2 minutes of it, nothing bad's gonna happen, but you really gotta go and piss. So nothing was more important than watching this movie. And this might sound really, like a joke, but it actually isn't. Very few movies pass this bladder test, and yeah, it passed this test with flying colors. Also, even though most of the story was very clear. Like, this was also something, one of the things that some people disliked about it, that it might be a little, some things were a little too clear. They were repeated a few times. And yes, those things happened. But, if I have to choose at gunpoint between no ambiguity at all and like super ambiguous stuff, like, I don't know, David Lynch's films, for instance, I'd go with no ambiguity all day long. And even though there are no questions left unanswered after watching this film, there's nothing that you could not understand, that you could have to see the movie for a second time to understand. Even though the story is clear, I want to definitely watch it again. And so, if anyone listening to this, if anyone of the 4 or 5 people listening to this want to see it for the first time, or you watched it and want to see it again, then join me. Yeah, let's go. And yeah, so that's it for today. And that was Good Trip, Bad Trip. Andre K signing off.